Good evening and welcome to the Finance Committee meeting, February 20th, 2013. My name is Marilyn Donahue. I'd like to welcome you to watch the rest of the program. I'd also like to remind you that the public is always welcome to attend our meetings. They are generally held on Wednesday evenings at the Multicultural Center. It can be seen at the town website exactly what our schedule is. And also on the town website is our email addresses. You can always feel free to contact any one of us directly if you have any questions. I'd like to give you a little overview of what's coming, the highlights from tonight's evening. First, we met with the Upper Cape Regional Technical Vocational School. We had the Wareham representative from their school advisory committee, I think it is the school committee, and the principal of Upper Cape, in just to discuss how they put their budget together, what the procedure is. We will meet with the superintendent with the actual budget numbers later on in our own budgeting process. We are very concerned that this number has come in much higher than it has in the past. And with the struggles that we are having to maintain even level funding at the town level for Wareham schools, it's very difficult to see increases in their budget, which has had no reduction in services or staff. So we're going to take a long, hard look at that. We didn't get into the specifics of the budget tonight. It was basically, again, just an overview of procedures with them. We appreciate their coming and we look forward to seeing the superintendent. We also had a presentation from the Board of Health with regard to something that came up when we met with the department head to go over the budget figures. One of the things that we'd asked all of our department heads to do is to look at ways to make the departments bring in income, to bring in revenue for each of the departments. And one of the critical needs in the Board of Health is for inspections of rental units. So two members of the Board of Health came in and presented us with a draft proposal that they will be looking to do for obtaining certificates for rental units. We have approximately 400, let's see if they told us the number. We have 481 units that we're aware of in the large facilities, the Woods of Wareham, Brandy Hill, Union Pond, and those types of facilities that generally have other inspectional services, state or federal, going through them anyway. But there is certainly a larger number across the town of private summer rentals and other apartments, 2 and 3 families, none of which are currently under any kind of a system that we're aware of. So there's a proposal that we will probably be hearing more from to get these units inspected. There would be a fee for that, and the proposal was put out in a rough draft, but I think it seemed to make some sense to most of us. We also heard from the director of the inspectional services with regard to an issue that concerned all of us in the departmental meeting that we had over the budget. And it just shows the way that we have to be so careful in how we spend our money. Because our inspectional services department was lacking in some of the policies, code enforcement, and certifications that we had in that department, the ISO, which is the qualifying agency for insurances, they basically inspect inspectional services departments so they can pass that information on to insurance actuaries to really rate the town. Wareham did not rate well. This is what towns use, what insurance companies use when they look at what the insurance rates are going to be for a certain town. They look at fire departments, how close your house is to a fire hydrant. But this is also a number that figures into it. And because Wareham was deficient in this number, our private homeowners insurances are going to increase. It will increase probably for the next 5 years because we will not be up for review for another 5 or 6 years. So this is something that certainly will be addressed with when we do have a new director of inspectional services coming in. But it's another way of being aware of money that we don't spend pinching pennies and not fully staffing a department that can have serious repercussions. So this is something that we also look for as we're going through these department budget requests. We had touched base with the school department. There have not been any changes yet that we're aware of on their budget. And we did get into some discussion with capital budget items. One of the greatest frustrations that we have is that Wareham has seriously neglected funding any capital items, and we have some critical needs, some of which will appear as warrant articles at this town meeting. The most recent problem that we've come up with, and there was some discussion over the gas tanks at the municipal maintenance, which failed during the storm. And that is critical that we replace that to the tune of about $60,000. So I wish there were more good news that I could give you. I can just tell you that discussions are ongoing and we're all working hard at it. And I thank you for your patience and look forward to any input you have.
Hi. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Clerk, you want to?
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
Roll call.
Mr. Gray, Mr. Worthing, Mr. Patulli, Mr. Trudell, Mr. Heath, our lovely chairman, and myself are here.
Okay.
We have four.
Do we have any citizens' participation? We'd like to welcome any citizens' participation. No? Okay, can we move over to where the town administrator go?
Do you want to skip over?
Or do you want to skip over? I'm sorry. I'd like for you to, I'm going to pass over my duties right now to Mr. Heath. He's been doing such a good job for me.
Some people do anything to get out of a little work.
No.
Good evening. The town administrator is the next listed item. However, since we have some guests tonight and we have some department heads, I'd like to give them the opportunity to do theirs first. Mr. Sullivan said he would like to hear some of this as well. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Fitchemeyer from the school committee of the Upper Cape Regional Vocational School. We extended an invitation to him. Unfortunately, Mr. Pierce was unable to make it tonight, but Mr. Fitchemeyer said that he would do more than that. So.
With me, sir, I've got Mr. Roger Furbett. He is the principal down at Upper Cape.
Thank you.
If you mind, I've explained to we've got a pretty informal. He now calls me Frank and I call him Bob. So we can. I explained to him that the reason why we were asking him to come in tonight was the fact that we really, for all the responsibility we have to the town meeting with the vocational school, we know very little about the school committee that's associated with that. So I asked him if he could come in tonight and discuss and just explain to us, right, what their function is. And they sound like us, a lot of advice, and that's about it, but that's okay. I'll let him go further on that. All right, so, and then after his discussion, I'll try to open it up for questions. This is not about budget, all right? Much like us, he doesn't have all the numbers at this point. We really can't answer some of those questions. I think we know that we will all be scheduled to meet with the superintendent, who will have all that detail. The thing that we're trying to understand tonight is process. And I know I have no idea what's going on, so.
Where do you want to start, Frank? Number one, thank you for the invite. Appreciate meeting all you. Hopefully I can be some help to you, because I'm lost too. Let's see if we can work together to get answers. Simple as that. Frank, where can I start?
If nothing else, what's the responsibility of what's the responsibility of the committee? What is the role of the committee?
The superintendent of Upper Cape answers to us directly as far as his expenditures, his operations, we don't have per se a lot of input into it, other than knowledge of what's going on, and the ability to have some questions, and the ability to possibly make change or request changes, or questions to make statements to us on why things are being done. Committee consists of 9 people. I'm in my second term myself, so I'm learning a lot. And every day I go down to Upper Cape, for whatever reason, I'm down there on the average of once a week for a couple hours. I go in the office, I talk to the administrators, I tour the school to see the condition of the school. I want to make sure the building's up and running. It looks great, I've never seen it down. Other than that, I don't have a lot of input into it, other than what facts and figures he gives me and what I see happen myself that I question.
Do you deal solely with the financial end of it, or do you also deal with some of the curriculum, or, I mean, that's what I'm saying, what are the boundaries for the committee?
It's mostly the financial end of it, but we're also responsible, at least in my mind, to the condition of the school. The type of students that are being put out, the way the students conduct themselves. I'm a tradesman myself. I'm an electrician, graduated from Old Oak, New Bedford. And it's important to me to see a student, when they go onto the street, they've got what they need, criteria to advance themselves, become a working individual, to be able to have input into the community in which we surround. In other words, basically, for lack of a way of putting it, I tour the school, I tour it with an administrator, I ask questions, I want to see the students working, I want to see the type of work they're doing, I want to see the school conditions, and that tells me the type of program is being run, and to see the students down there working, and the pride they take in their work, tells me the type of student they're putting out.
How frequently do you, I'm sorry?
Matt, the committee is also responsible for overseeing all the policies and procedures of the school. So each year, either one of my administrators, either Dean of Students, for instance, will bring the handbook for school committee's approval. They will review it, soup to nuts, all the changes that have happened. Anything like that all the way through. You asked earlier about curriculum, and as much as they don't see the day-to-day curriculum all the way through, they do, on the overall, look at the curriculum of the school. There are many facets to not only the school committee, but unlike a traditional high school, the vocational school has advisory committees that meet on a regular basis. By statute, they meet individually by all of the different 13 shop areas, but they also meet as a general advisory to kind of guide and help the school committee, because they meet with the school committee as well, for all of the curriculum changes as they happen throughout the state. So as the frameworks change for, let's say, carpentry, those pieces are put forward and then are approved as they meet with the school committee and kind of come back into the school.
Patty? I'm sorry, you,
Yeah, I just wanted to get the name, sorry, of the school committee member.
oh, I have it spelled here.
Can you spell it for me?
FICH,
F-I-C-H.
TEN,
T-E-N.
MAYER.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, it's not a
Okay,
problem at all.
great, okay, good. Is it all right to ask any questions, Mr.?
Well, of course it is, but one question I do want to ask before we get started on that is the frequency with which the committee meets.
We meet once a month officially as a total committee, all 9 of us. Amongst the course of the month, we have several different subcommittees that meet, that are made up of 2 or 3 representatives and the administration. They could meet anywhere from 3 or 4 times, 5 times a month. But the official meeting is normally the second Thursday of every month.
So it's a good deal of time. Are your members also members of the advisory committees as well, or?
Meaning the other
Do you
committees?
participate in some of the advisories?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
yes, I
so
do.
that can happen.
Yeah.
Questions, Mrs. Franke?
Yes, my question is, you said specifically that you're involved with the financial ends. Do you, you obviously live here in Wareham, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with this situation that we're facing with our schools? And the increase that is going to go to our school versus the increase that's requested for Upper Cape?
I've been told about the system, the budget system, but the actual facts and figures that I'm given to look at and explain to me, no, I'm not familiar with how they arrived. I know, answer that statement, I know I've got 2 kids, one went to Wareham High School, one went to Upper Cape. So I've got familiar on both sides here, playing the fence. I know a certain amount of money comes from the state. That portion of money I'm not familiar with, the total amount, how it's expended. What I see and what my committee normally sees is the budget that is being asked for, the superintendent and his representatives saying what they need to perform an operation. And that's worked through a subcommittee, goes to the subcommittee, they critique it, questions are asked, it comes back to us again, it goes back to the subcommittee, and eventually the end product comes to us by the superintendent.
May I?
Yes,
Well, again, the
sure.
budget issue, most of the budget numbers will be discussed by the superintendent, but again,
Yeah.
he covered the process of
Right.
the
Well,
subcommittees.
and the other piece to that is that by statute, vocational schools, so Mass General Law, funds those students, and there's 11 different criteria that make up the foundation budget, all the way through, all the way down the line. So students that, let's say K through 6 are funded at one rate, 6 through 8 at another, 9 through 12 at another. And that's broken up throughout the state, every different area. And there's a lot of other components that fit into that, but there's 11 different criteria. The vocational school students are also funded at another rate, and that's all just by statute, that's Mass General Law. So as that's broken up, some of the change that you see is not anything that's done by Upper Cape, it's being actually done by the state, it's numbers that are given. The only thing Upper Cape does is provide DESE, or the state, with the number of students coming from Wareham, from Bourne, from Wareham. And those are the only criterion that are put into effect. DOR, actually the Department of Revenue, sets all of the other criterion, whether it be the ability to pay, property values, all of those pieces are set by DOR, not in any way, shape, or form by Upper Cape.
Mr. Trudell?
How is
Mr. Oren?
this, how is this,
Mr.
excuse me,
Trudell?
I'm sorry,
Mr. Trudell?
I'm sorry, I didn't have my hand.
Okay.
You do represent the town of Wareham on the vocational school board, is that
Yes, I
right?
do, sir.
We've had trouble meeting in the past some of these budget issues. One of my concerns, and maybe you can help me understand, is do you interface with our town administrator or our school departments that you understand some of the budget considerations that the town is going through and the type of funding issues that we're looking at? So when you come to that board at the vocational school, you have an understanding of the town's position. Do you do that?
I've been in town since '87. I've been on several committees here. Currently, I'm on a CETA board. Do I see the finances and the restriction the town's going through? I see it all the time. Do I live it myself? Yes.
Do you interface with the town administrator and the town school committee to what's going on?
Only when I'm called, sir.
That answers my question, thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
Just a quick one. When it comes to our school, we have Chapter 70, if you will. They have specific formulas that go into create the Chapter 70 versus what we contribute from the town side. And there's a ratio. And obviously, the ratio is, Chapter 70's been dropping, and our ratio in town has, well, hopefully, should have been increasing. Is that similar to the way it is at Upper Cape, that the state or that whatever it is provides a certain amount, and then there's contribution from the towns that participate in studies? Has that ratio changed? In other words, has the money dropped on this side and that ratio gone a little bit more towards the people that are contributing?
Yes, and in particular, what you're describing has happened, and it's happening to Wareham, probably twofold on a couple of different fronts. The number of students has increased coming to Upper Cape, and the number of students you have in general that are here in Wareham dropped considerably. The difference is you have a loss of about 81 students as a total in Wareham. You have an increase of 23 to Upper Cape Tech. And I know it's been said, oh, the students are all wanting to go there. There's actually an admissions process to actually get into Upper Cape Tech, and it's very, very difficult. So it's not anything that we're trying to pick students. It's done blindly and left open to that end as they come through. But getting back to your question, so you have a drop of 81, an increase on this side, so you have a differential of 104 right across. So there's a large gap that's making up that. In addition to that, the growth factor here in Wareham is up this year. It's up 1%. The property values are up 0.36, and your average income on the residents is up 1.6. So you take in all of those pieces, which gets back to the Chapter 70 funding you're describing, and those are lowering the aid that you're receiving, which means the town's paying that much more. Now you have the number of students decreasing, which is why your Chapter 70 even went down even more than that, and they're going to upper K even larger. So in all aspects, it looks like the perfect storm, in that you're losing all on this end and it's just going up on this end. There's no way to actually plan for that, because you don't know the number of students. They change year to year. Some years you have higher, some years they go down. This year in the town of Falmouth, their numbers went down considerably, and they've had other years where they've gone up considerably. There's just no way to predict that.
Mr. Worthy?
You have 700 students, four grades, is it?
About 600, what, 662?
664.
664, and there are four grades?
Correct.
And there's 5 towns.
Correct.
Why does Fort Marion only have one rep on the committee?
It's actually, that was done in the early charter when they did the school, and that's what they were given. No rhyme or reason, I wasn't here then, I don't know, but that's the number that they were given.
And how is the split determined between the 5 communities in terms of the share of the total budget?
The assessment is done by DOR and DESE, so your assessment is given to us on the number of students, and that's based on the number of students that actually come to upper K, which is why it fluctuates each year. Sometimes you have more students, sometimes you have less.
On a cost per student basis?
The cost per student base is done by the ability of the town to pay. There's a lot of factors that actually factor into that. So if we're looking at bang for the buck, the students coming from Falmouth, they're coming in and the town is paying more for those students than they are from Wareham for the same education from the state plan. It's just different towns and their abilities to pay and the non-aid that they receive from the state.
Do you pay rent to Bourne?
Do we pay? No, we do not. We are 5 sending towns and we happen to be located in Wareham, but we don't pay rent to the town of Wareham.
State-owned property?
It's actually owned by the 5 sending towns, I believe. I'd have to go back and look at the charter, but I believe it's owned by the 5 sending towns.
You do a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This
We
is
have an awful
Donnie.
lot of pride in our school.
I'd like to repeat that. You do a good job. And we've talked in general about the formula for that, but I'm just curious, an actual budgeting process. We're assuming that the other towns, although don't know that Bourne, Falmouth, and Sandwich and Marion are having the same kind of problems that we're having. But we sat here and listened to our school committee tell us about the cuts they've made in the past and the cuts that we're looking at this year. Have you had cuts in staff, positions, programs, services, and what, if so, what are they?
We have not. We have not cut any of our staff. In fact, we're continuing to provide the same service at the same cost as what we've been doing.
It's not really the same cost.
It's not.
That's
It's
the
not.
problem that we're having. It just becomes difficult.
Again, that's not set by us.
I
That's
appreciate
all
that.
set by the state.
Mrs. Cattouli?
I think it's a little confusing in how you stated that it's set by the state. I mean, I think what you're trying to say is the divvying up is set by the state. Okay, the budget itself is not built by the state. The budget itself is built by the superintendent and the budget committee. Am I correct?
You are correct. The
Okay.
foundation is set by the state.
The
So
foundation as to how much you can charge per town is set by the state.
Is set by the state. That's
Exactly.
correct.
But what we're trying to get at is, how are you building your budget?
Mhm.
Okay, our issue here is that, you got a budget set, and now you need to divvy it up between the towns, and we can no longer afford it. That is our issue here. We would like to know what you're basing your budget on, where public schools, Wareham, for one, right now, has to cut staff to build a budget because the town can't afford it. What is Upper Cape doing as far as building their budget to keep it so that the towns can afford to send their children there? This is our issue. Building a budget is wonderful and then saying, okay, the state gets to tell us how we get to pay for it. But we're trying to find out our base numbers here. We have to make sacrifices here at these schools. Are you making those same sacrifices?
Mrs. Cthulhu, I might interrupt for a minute. This is really something to direct to the superintendent. As to
I
how
just didn't
he's
want a
working.
misunderstanding that the state tells us what we're paying.
We're discussing the process tonight, all right, but really when it comes down to the budget, it's something we're gonna have to discuss with the superintendent. And there will be a lot of questions, I'll tell you that right now, but I don't think it's fair to ask you to answer those tonight, because that was not the matter of our subject. We have no figures in front of us or anything
Right.
else.
Thank you.
I'd like to go back to another question that you said. You said you've always been available to the town when asked.
Right.
Have we been remiss in as far as our dates are concerned? It seems like in the 3 years that I've been here, we've always seen you at the last minute, for whatever reason.
I try and follow my superintendent around. I work for myself, I work for the state up until last year, and myself. I was National Guard, so my town is gripped. So I try and follow the superintendent around to his different meetings as I can.
Mhm.
If I know of a certain meeting that is going to affect or mention Upper Cape, I try my hardest to be there. The unfortunate part that I'm not available to you, I haven't been in the past, will change. I'll make that available now.
I guess my question is though, it sounds like we don't invite you too often, or if we do, we invite you at the last minute.
You're the first one that's ever invited me.
Well, that's pretty bad because I was the chairman last year. So, okay, thanks. Marilyn? Mrs. Donahue?
So you haven't had cuts in services, and you haven't had cuts in staff. Have you done cost-saving measures? How about, I know one of the biggest burdens that we have is our healthcare cost. What
Again,
are-
you're getting into the detail
Is that
of
too
the
detailed?
budget. You're too detailed on that
That's
one.
fine.
Okay. Mr. Word?
This is an efficiency issue. You started one class this year where the students are provided with an iPad or something, and they are doing, you got an upside down class where they do their, whatever, their preparation at home and come back and.
Correct. Do more.
What have you, what's been the impact of that? What's your sense of the success of that?
Superintendent actually.
He's got a study being done right now, which he's gonna present on the effects of the iPad and how it's affected cost-wise, so on and so forth, back and forth.
We've cut back on our textbook needs and costs, so there's savings from that end. As far as the students and being engaged, much more so. And I'll use myself as the example. So I have a 2-year-old daughter who has the ability to take my iPad and just go through it quicker than I can. In fact, she's a little bit better at my iPhone than I am as well, which is a little embarrassing. But those are the students that are coming to school. And so they're a very different student than when I went to school and walked in, and yet I still carry my pencil with me everywhere I go. Most students don't have a pencil with them. They don't walk in the door with this. They're walking in with their iPhones and their iPads. So we really have to look at how they're learning today and make sure that we're up to date with meeting those needs and those, for all intents and purposes, the customer is walking through the door.
Is that program being expanded in fiscal year 14?
I made a recommendation to the superintendent to expand that. We initially had it at 10th grade. I'd like to offer it to 9th graders again next year. So it would be 10th and 9th, so I will have 3 grades using iPads throughout my school. I'm very, very frugal in looking at and putting technology throughout the school and making sure that I have it in the classroom so they have the ability to use smart boards and the kids are engaged all the way across the board. You're absolutely right. We've done the upside down school where we're trying to do more homework at school, and they actually have the ability to look at my teachers online.
And you've got a better assessment of how the student is learning as well.
Correct. As we look down the line with Common Core coming down the line, federal and state mandates, they're going to get to the point where MCAS is no longer a pencil and paper test. Everything is done online. So if you're not moving in that direction, you're way behind the 8 ball, as they move forward in looking and going that way.
Who provided the iPads, or
We did.
we did?
We did.
Just a follow-up to that, Mr. Fitzgerald, obviously that technology, is that an area of policy decision-making for the committee, or is that something that comes to you and it's just? you-
That was brought in front of us by the superintendent. The value of it was explained by the superintendent. The facts on what the actual value is taking place, we're waiting for. And the superintendent is doing a study on that right now, present to the boards as they come.
Did-
From what I've seen personally, walking through the school, students have their iPads and they're working on it. And I see the work on the iPad, grades are up, they're much more involved in what they're doing, because they can do it right in front of them. And the communications that's open between the parents, the students, and the teachers, it's fantastic.
I guess my question is, did the superintendent make a proposal to the school committee which said, go ahead and try?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Okay, so you do have, you just can't carte blanche this, he has
No,
to
no,
come
no,
to you,
no.
and the policies we're going to test, we're going to do it, et cetera. Okay? Mr. Gray?
I'd just like to follow up a little bit on how your school committee operates. You don't get into the day-to-day operational control, that's up to the superintendent.
I get a phone call from the superintendent anytime something takes place down there, it's out of the ordinary.
Okay, you do.
I do constantly, yes.
And I presume, for example, you have hiring and firing control of superintendent. I mean, if he left, your committee would be in charge of finding his replacement.
That's correct. We'd be overseeing the finding of his replacement, yes.
Mr. Cameron?
Two-part question. The dropout rate at Upper Tech, is it been,
It's part of the superintendent's presentation that he'll be actually doing the FinCom. I do have a portion of it. Let me see if I can pull that up for you right now. Upper Cape Tech, we were at 2 this past year, 2% that is. I'm looking at Wareham, that's at almost 11.
and is there any record of grade, I guess it's MCAS now, has that average been on the rise or stable as far as, maybe look at it?
It
Is there
is.
an MCAS, level or grade that you track year to year?
It is. All of my students pass MCAS right across the board with the science, English, and math. I have currently, of my students, almost a 90% proficient or advanced in English, and close to that in math, right across the board.
And
I'm very proud of my kids.
one other quick question. The placement of students after they get out of the schools, is Upper Tech, do they help in that, as far as jobs? I know it goes to technical school, so everyone's looking for a job when they get out. Is that part of the process of the school when they get out?
It absolutely is. It's an excellent question. Being a vocational school, we're required by both Perkins funding, which comes federal, as well as through DESE Chapter 74, which is what we fall under, to have placements. And we do follow-up rates, 1 year and 5 year, of all of our students. So we track our students. Again, most traditional high schools don't have to do that on whether they placed, they went to college, they dropped out, they did whatever. But a vocational school is required to do so. I can tell you right now, from my senior class, almost a third, 31% of my students are currently on co-op. Right across the board in all 13 shops. Of that, last year, we have a 90% positive placement for Perkins. We exceeded that, we were somewhere around 98. And that's whether it be post-secondary and or in the field of their choice.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. McDonald?
You might slap me down for this one.
No, keep it short. No Kate Kirk questions.
I'm just gonna try to ask it, let me get it out before you hit me. I'm a big believer in indicators. In my line of work, we use a lot of indicators to judge directions and where the things are going. And one of the things we use here in Wareham to look at our schools is the increase in the free and reduced lunch program. And it's significantly high. I think it's 57% at the last count. Do you have, what is your free, I mean, percentage-wise, what is your percentage of students that are on free or reduced lunch?
You know how you
Mr.
find
McDowell, excuse me, 54 overall, 57 is the deepest school.
Okay, that's a correction on
sorry.
our side. Our town is-
57 went down,
Our town is 50, the town's 54, the Deacon Schools is 57.
all right, well, which is a lower grade, so it's not a good, so
Right.
54.
And I don't have that, I don't have those actual numbers. I can get them for you if you'd like.
Could you have
I'm
this
sure
for
that
their
the superintendent has.
Right, for the,
Make sure that
I
he
would,
brings
I
us
would, yeah.
I can certainly do that.
Another question that I know that we're gonna have is your transportation system. I
Yep.
realize it's somewhat limited, but it also, there's several elements to it that probably mirror our problems here in Wareham. We don't have an understanding of that. Again, we're gonna, and I'm not gonna drop that back to you, because I imagine that's all under the superintendent's purview.
We'll make sure of it.
Okay, did you have more, Mr. McCown?
No, that was one of my, and you didn't hit me, so go to the
It's a
report.
fair question, it was an honest question about that. Any other questions? Seeing none, would you mind if the town administrator asked you a question?
Not at all.
All right. Mr.
Sure.
Oh, Sullivan. However you want to do it.
Yeah, from just right here. The one thing I was thinking about was the school committee dates for the budget. Do you know roughly when they are? Because when I look at it, town meeting is towards the end of April, and we essentially need to have everything lined up a good couple of weeks before that. When is the first time that you really see the budget or would vote on the final budget number?
Next meeting, March.
Yeah, I believe so, right?
March.
As far as meeting with the towns, I don't think there's any dates yet.
Right. Second, let me just look at the calendar quick. So,
Be about
second
17th, 16th?
Thursday, I think it's the 14th. March 14th, I believe, is the school committee date.
All right.
Confirm with, and get back to you on that to be sure, but I believe it's the 14th.
So
The
the,
second, right? Second Thursday?
that's not the first time all the numbers are seen, they're released before then?
They're released, school committee members have seen them to look at them. They've come out of the budget subcommittee. So that, they've already done that. They'll vote on it, I believe, on the 14th. And the packets go out early, obviously.
I'm gonna ask probably a silly question, but is there any way to ramp that time up so that it's earlier?
The unfortunate piece is you're waiting on the governor, you're waiting on the governor's number. And although that may or may not be an actual or a good number, we're waiting for that from, again, from DOR. So there's no way to expedite that any faster than.
So you're in the same ball and same.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One other question I had was, there's the foundation budget.
Yep.
And just so, I don't want numbers, but are you
Yep.
budgeting above the foundation budget?
I believe that we are slightly above foundation this year.
Okay.
So, and the superintendent, that'll be part of his whole presentation, along with the numbers and everything across the board.
Then the last question I guess I would have is, how can I interact better with you, the town administration?
Well, you want me to?
Go ahead, you're doing fine.
Certainly you are welcome, and I know that our chairperson wanted to invite you, all of you, to Upper Cape Tech. At any given time, you're welcome to stop in. If we know in advance, we'd love to have you up to our restaurant, and that way you're able to sample some of what our kids do. Our students cook, bake, all of the goods for both the student body as well as in the restaurant itself, so it's part of their shop that they're actually completing, so it's not as many of the other schools have outside vendors. We actually do that ourselves, and it's part of the learning process.
And that's not a dig for the weight I put on, right?
Right. And if there's any indication about the food at Upper Cape Tech, I was 130 pounds, so you can see what it's done. But you are all invited and welcome to Upper Cape Tech. I would ask that you simply send an email to either myself, and I'll leave cards, or the superintendent, and we'd love to have you up. We'd love to show you around the school and let our chairperson know so that he can be there as well as the other school committee member from Wareham, Mr. Pierce.
Okay, Mr.
One real quick one, right there.
The first one, could you figure out?
through you, has there ever been, or is there, a meeting where all the town committees get together with you at the same time to discuss, financial problems or anything like, I mean, everyone, all the towns together with you at one time?
I
Has that ever
haven't been
done?
exposed, I haven't been exposed to that.
Is
It's
that,
happened in the past, it goes back a couple of superintendents. It was a very different type of meeting to do that at. They moved away from it because individual towns, certain towns didn't have, as you said earlier, Marion only has one, they have 5 students. It was not an issue, they really didn't want to be bothered. Where Falmouth may have had a decrease in students and didn't bother coming, so it wasn't as productive as the town administrator meeting with the superintendent to really kind of crunch numbers ahead of time, and then the superintendent coming to the FinCom committee to really make a presentation.
second part, do you think that that would be a beneficial process if someone could put that together?
I don't know that it would. I think Mr. Sullivan actually meet with Mr. Dutch. They're probably, between the two of them, will hash out things quicker than adding more and more chefs in the kitchen, so to speak.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do hear from Mr. Dutch, and there's spoken with him and such, so I don't want to get to the point that he's not reaching out to me on that. I do hear from him.
Mr. Worthy, you indicated you had another question?
Does the adult education self-liquidating make money?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Does it make money?
It does, and in fact, that comes back as part of his presentation, along with the transportation piece, so that although there's not a refund, so to speak, back to the towns, it is put against the budget of the upcoming year, so there is relief that way.
What do you do, is it continue in the summer? There's a summer part of it too, right?
There are summer programs that run continuing ed, as well as the LPN, that have been. and
Does it Born Brave that pay for the use of the ball field over there?
They have a separate agreement. They pay for all the lighting, so they're allowed to use the field. It's kind of symbiotic in that the school gets the accreditation or the renown piece of being the home of the Born Braves, but they pay for all the lighting and the overhead for the summer, for all of their use. And that's done with many of the different programs that are, yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Any other questions? Mr. Sweat would like that. Mr. Sweat is the chairman of our board of, our school committee. And I come from the Board of Education. Would you mind answering the question?
Not at all. I know Jeff very
Mr.
well.
Sweat?
Good evening and welcome. Am I correct that you have the luxury of being oversubscribed, meaning you have more applicants than you can accommodate?
That is correct. Currently, we have 180 slots. I will accept 180 students into the school. I have, last year I had 330 applications.
So, if that was the case for a charter school, they would hold a lottery. And I believe it would be legal for you to hold a lottery.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not. It's actually, Chapter 74 requires us to have an admissions process that's accepted and approved by the state. And it's reviewed on a regular basis, and there's certain criteria that we must meet.
Interesting, because until recently I thought exactly what you thought, and I was just informed recently that you had the choice of using a lottery. The bottom line is, you have an admission process similar to a university or college, and you select the best students,
No.
and you're oversubscribed.
That's actually incorrect. And I don't know who told you that we could have a lottery system, but our state director, Chapter 74.
I believe you, I was surprised when I was told that.
Yeah, that's actually part of Mass General Law. And so in Chapter 74, it states that there's only an admissions process. Unlike charter schools that have to be approved by the State Board of Education, those vocational schools are not done that way. So with our admissions process, it's done blindly. So you're not able to cherry pick students right across the board. I don't know a student that is special education versus a student that is regular ed. Adam, they come in, I have an interview process, which is part of the admissions. I go by their grades, by their discipline, those are all components, and their attendance. There's actually a rubric that is set up that way with a number of points. And we moved from having it and going to all the different towns and in the schools, because schools actually were not really receptive to that, to moving it on a Saturday. So I have staff that sets up 2 interviewers with each student that comes in. and they go through the application process that way.
Well, you say it's blind, but the better their attendance, the better their grades, the better their behavior, the
Yep.
more likely they are to be accepted, correct?
That is again, set by DESE.
So it's not exactly blind.
Well, it's blind in that I don't know if the student is special education or not. And it's open to whoever's walking through the door. So if a student is coming from a charter school per se, or a private school, I'm basing it on what I have in front of me. So if they're telling me that they have pre-algebra, then really it's not. Or what it is given as an A, I don't really know. I have to take it at face value as the student's walking through. So to that end, it's blind.
Thank you and welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's about it. I want to thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you for your
both.
time.
Thank you.
I think we learned a great deal tonight.
Mhm.
I think the other thing that we'll want to do is probably schedule the superintendent as close to that March 15th date as possible.
I will convey that to him.
Give him a lot of practice for
Put him ahead.
what he might have for the other 4 towns, I'm not sure.
It's unfortunate that we're not able to accept all the students that apply and would like to come to Upper Cape Town. And that's a very difficult process. And I have to have very difficult conversations with phone calls about that. So to that end, if I could accept them all, I would take them.
Very good.
Thank you so much for having us.
Please come and visit us. Look forward to touring with you.
Better be careful, especially lunch.
I've been there, and I applaud.
I'm reading it too, it's very good.
Well, and I will pass my cards this way. Please feel free, shoot me an email, a phone call, whatever you would like, and I'm happy to set up the time. And that's true for anyone else that would like to.
I would also say at any point that you would like to come back and speak to us for any reason. Yourself, Mr.
You got my email, you got my phone number,
Now,
sir.
give us a yell and we'll be more than glad to sit with you and talk with you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to continue out of order in on the agenda again. I was hoping to have the Board of Health. I think Mr. Easter had to leave.
Yeah,
bother
he
you?
didn't feel too well, I apologize for him,
Okay.
but he wasn't up to spot.
Oh, Bob,
Yeah, he was feeling sick.
We have that effect on a lot of people.
Yeah, he was listening to you guys, and that's it. We dodged the last two, you gotta get out of here.
The reason why-
These are just brief packets that we'll put together today, which is sort of a snapshot of what Wareham has for housing, or the proposed regulation for housing and housing inspection. The objective is to have every rental unit in the town of Wareham registered through the Board of Health. And that would be an annual registration. Here are also just a snapshot of what Wareham has just for apartments. We don't know right now how many housing rental units there are
Yeah.
exactly, but I think we could safely make some assumptions. Frank and I are gonna fly by the seat of our pants, which we do the best anyway. Bob prepared most of this information. We have had conversations.
We're missing 2 handouts.
Bob and I met, of
They're
which,
coming this way, honey.
Oh, I'm talking about that one.
which one?
the original
The
one.
Board of Health, okay, 2 more?
Please.
Just 2, or?
That's it.
If I
Okay.
may interrupt for a second, part of the reason why I asked the Board of Health to come back to us again, and I'm saying come back, originally we had our department heads meeting, they were the second day, and unfortunately, because the work schedule, et cetera, we were kind of minimum number of people there from the FinCom. One of the questions that did come up was the whole issue of inspection of apartments, et cetera, for a couple of reasons. One, potential liabilities to the town, also that other municipalities, et cetera, have done this, and in the end, Board of Health becomes pretty much self-sufficient because it's sort of a double win for the town, or a double win for the municipality, right? One part is that you're able to pay for the Board of Health, and it's good work. The other side is also you don't get caught on the short end of a liability situation where something should have been detected, or, you know, or you don't spend a lot of time in court cases, all right, where things come on the back end. It takes longer to go through the legal process than it does on the front end to go in and do the inspection. So, Mrs.
Yeah.
Frank, or we're gonna let them speak
I'm gonna let them
first.
speak
I
in
just
a
wanted
second.
to
I
finish
just-
the preface of
right.
why they're here.
And I just wanted to comment on that from, coming from the business myself. Bob Ethier and I have been talking about this for 5 years to try to get this, because the city of Boston does it, and they do it very successfully. Anytime you turn over a unit, you gotta pay $50 for the city to come in and take a look at it. And it keeps the landlords, keeps them up front, keeps them honest, and it keeps the tenants from being able to sue for frivolous
It
things.
protects the owners.
Exactly,
It would, you know,
exactly.
it would-
So I think this is, you know, if we can ever get this through, it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Well, like everything, it's subject to resources.
Absolutely.
It is, though, a program that I think will prove self-sufficient once it gets root hold. Now, when Bob Ethier met with Derek at the onset of this budget process, we had a brief discussion about the idea of registering all our rental units in the town of Wareham. That be it single-family homes, if so, and/or all the apartments. The list you have are only those units or locations that have 8 units or more. There are a lot of rental units in the town of Wareham that are 2 families or 3s or 4s or up to less than 8 that we don't have a tracking system for. So that's something that we can hope to establish with the assessing office to get a better handle on how many actual rental units are there in the town of Wareham. The way our regulations are written now for inspections, any one of those larger unit complexes would be subject to a $100 one-time annual fee, together with then $25 for each additional unit that would get turned over in that same year. Each unit would have to be registered on an annual basis, so it's that $25 every year. And you can see just by the math for the apartment units, that program would generate generally $12,000 a year. But obviously, there needs to be a body that's got to go out and provide that inspection. We foresee that together with, and let's just take, I'm going to talk general numbers. As of the last census, I believe Wareham has a little bit better than 10,000 units in the town. I think we could safely say that 15 to 20% of those are rental units or second homes, subject to renting, whether they're rented seasonally or year-round. And seasonally could be 2 seasons. That is the prime season, that be it the summer, or the off-season, which is typically, you know, your school teachers and nurses and so forth that rent from September then to next May, and then turn over for the premium rental fees. They're still subject to registering and inspection so as to hopefully avoid more complaints. If we have these homes registered annually, I think the health department will see a whole lot less complaints. We get out in front of it on an annual basis, and these units will be ideally kept up to code annually, so that I think in the long run, the revenue would take care of the inspector. It's actually a program that would help offset more services, and then our housing stock would be more up to code, which is really the objective as well. Now, what will that cost? We just had an assistant health agent take a new job starting next month. Derek has already started advertising for that position. That position is a 30-hour-a-week job. Without this program, we could easily see that becoming a 40-hour-a-week job, and then maybe more. We have a part-time inspector who works through the block grant program. That's John Viveros. I don't know if any of you have had the privilege of meeting him. He works 19 hours a week. He's retired from the state as a health inspector. He does a phenomenal job. He knows the code inside and out. We're really fortunate to get him for what we do. He could ideally take some of those hours he works every week and put it towards this same effort. We could easily see the need for a body just doing this annually, especially with now, you all read, we had the pressure of adopting regulations relative to nutrient loading. That's in itself a whole new responsibility for the health department when it comes to reviewing plans and inspections and the management of these alternative systems.
We were trying to stick with the apartment one because I actually gave them the assignment as they were leaving that day.
Yeah.
We asked the question, could something be in place for the first of the year, July 1? And the question was there something that we could do this year? And there was a question as to whether that something had.
Well, like I started, like everything, it's about resources.
Or could it be self-sufficient?
And I recognize that our resources are tight.
If I may, Mr. Brady, one of the questions that also came up was whether or not we could handle it as a revolving fund, so that it was sufficient, and could we get seed money out of seed? This pretty much was a follow-up that I was hoping to have with Mr. Easter tonight.
Okay.
To find out is, are we making any progress on this? Will we do anything in 2013, or is this now a 2014 project?
So are you asking that,
Or 2014 project?
are you asking if Bob went to CETA and asked if he could get
No,
seed?
I'm asking, are we making any progress on putting a program together where we would, like we said, we had to have a formalized inspection program.
Yep.
People need to be made aware of it. If we're gonna set up a revolver says that you have to, be paid for yourself.
To get off the,
We're not looking to add a whole bunch of, the financial situation, we can't add a full-time person.
I think we can get off the ground right away. The town where I work at, they do this. And there's approximately only 5,800 people year-round, but during the summer, there's 25,000. They take in $90,000. They charge $50 for rental. We have 100 here. That was Bob's prerogative. Bob beat the end, that's fine. I didn't care where he was going. But it was pretty easily put into place because we do have rentals that we take a look at right now in the town. So we've got something where we can go with right away. I think we were talking about sending something with the assessor when he sends the bills out, when they send the bills out, send something in there to let them know that this is what they're gonna have to do now. And that's how we can get around it. And then maybe put it advertised in the paper or something like that. But I can just say from there that it works pretty doggone good. And basically from the safety standpoint, what Donna said, that's the reason alone why we should have it, to protect the town and protect the owner.
All right, well, I was gonna say is, Mr. Ether worked with the town administrator at all, as far as setting up a revolver or anything, or
Mr. Chair,
are we making any progress? Mr.
if you don't
Sullivan?
mind me answering that, we have a article in the town meeting for a revolving account. And part of the thought is the code enforcement agent's job or position is only funded through September or October, I believe, from CETA. So we will get the revolving account set up, establish this, and start having, while he's currently paid by the CETA grant, start having the monies from the inspections and such put into the revolving to start as the seed money.
Okay, is the article to get the seed money, or is the article to actually set the program?
No, the article is to establish a revolving account for the purpose.
Okay, so we will be vetting that will come to us.
Right.
But you are making progress,
Yes.
you're on your way.
Right.
Will there be an actual, something that we can hand to the landlord that says these are the standards you must
Well,
meet?
we passed out a copy of the proposed regulations.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
This has to be fine-tuned a little better.
Right.
Right, it'll be a checklist, right?
It'll be what?
A checklist, so there's no arguing about it, or no
Oh, you mean the
raise?
registration itself?
I think I could help. What they're gonna be looking at, I think is what he's talking about, right? When they go in and look at the building.
Yeah.
Yes.
I definitely can help with that.
The more objective, the better. That was the whole question we had that day was, can you put an objective program out there that people on the town meeting floor could look at and say, you know what, this is reasonable. If I was moving in and renting, I would want to see this being done. All right, and if there's a violation, I would want it addressed or fined or
I
whatever.
can get a checklist from Barnstable, I get a checklist from the town where I work.
Okay, and you'll have that by the time we vet that article here, right? Which will probably be sometime Is this article already in?
It is.
Probably sometime within the next 3 weeks.
Mr. Heath, the beauty of this, is you know if you're doing it for, is the larger properties like Woods of Wareham, Brandy Hill, Union Pond, the other new, they all have REAC coming, marching through Mass Housing and HUD doing inspections. So we're just gonna be walking through them and just, every time they turn
Yeah,
over,
they've
you're
already got it
collecting the
done
money.
anyway.
They've got it, you just, I mean, nobody does a better inspection than REAC, the
Right.
government, so, I mean, that's.
At least now, every unit will be registered within the town.
Exactly,
Which is a good thing.
and then, there's a fee to go with it, I love it, I love it.
Questions,
Never mind.
Mr. Cattouli?
Never mind.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Mr. Trudell?
Indeed, Mr. Ethier thought it could be self-sufficient, I guess, and I can recognize you have 481 units that you can readily identify. However, one of our other committees one year proposed spending some money to bring units up to standards, which led me to believe that there may be an awful lot of unregistered apartments. And what's your intent of gathering places like Swift Beach, which has a tremendous rental turnover during the...
Well, the interesting thing is there are a couple of mechanisms in place now. Obviously, getting the word out to every property owner in Wareham will be first and foremost. In the assessing process, together with, through the tax process in the state, if you own a piece of property that is not your primary home, you are subject to submitting the information about any and all additional homes. So there's another register, if you will, of identifying homes that are not primary homes. That together with, through the assessing database, we can identify anything that is more than one unit. They all have a variety of codes. It was just easier to pull up those 6 or 7 today for tonight, but I think we could safely say that there's probably another 1,000, 1,500 units out there that are multi-units.
So what you're telling me is that you do have the wherewithal.
Yes.
for
Oh, we have the
alternative
resources
means
to
close
get
in
it,
on.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
I gotta say one thing, you know, again, the towns like where I am, they don't even have multi-units. They're getting that 90,000 from basically the summer population and the summer rentals. We have both, so there's no telling what this could come into.
Mrs. Donahue?
Two questions. So the fee for registration is a $100 fee just to put yourself into the system,
Right.
and then it's a $25 annual fee?
That would only be, the $25 fee would be for if, like these large unit complexes.
Okay.
If there are, if you read it, if there are more than one unit on that same premise, that's a $25 fee. Otherwise, a single-family home would be $100 annually to register.
$100
Correct.
a year.
Correct.
But you're not, your wording here is really vague.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
first off, it doesn't say annually to begin with.
Well, it does say you have to register it annually, so it
It
does.
doesn't say, that number 8 says fee registration, there's nothing about annually there.
That's what I thought. It looked
So
like a
it's-
fee
it's
for
really-
registration. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
it's really vague.
Okay. And
Well, it's a draft.
But that is the
That's right.
register,
We're letting you know that that needs to be
that's
cleaned
just
up.
identifying the fee.
Okay.
It's $100.
And other towns.
If you read further, it does say that you need to register annually. So while it may seem vague at number 8,
Well, it's very
the
vague.
regulations address the fact that it has to be done annually.
And we'll get a chance to vet a lot of this in the article.
And you're probably trying to read it all in 5 minutes, and I know that's not easy.
Well, I was just sitting here doing the math. Woods of Wareham is $2,575 yearly? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying annually? They're $2,575 annually that they're gonna pay to the town of Wareham?
Who's gonna pay?
The Woods of Wareham. I just sat here and did the math.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying? So
Yes.
because it's a base of $100.
If
and
whatever the
for one
units are
unit,
times 25 units.
And then the other 99 units, they're paying $25.
Right.
Okay. Is there any restriction if there's any 40B issues? Do they get any tax break or any out of this
No,
regulation?
no, it's a rental unit.
Okay, that's what I want
Okay.
Mr. Camarano?
Frank, you mentioned that you thought it might be like, self-sufficient. Go one step further. profitable, you feel that the town can actually, make money on this?
Well-
When you had mentioned self-sufficient, I'd like to look beyond that.
Are you talking to me?
Whoever.
Well, I don't see why self-sufficient, I see it way by that.
That's my,
That's why I'm saying the fact is, this is a small town getting 90 grand. Here we got a big town, we got, 21,000, 22,000 people. I'm not saying they're all renters, but you got, like Bob said, probably 10,000.
right, because my whole outlook is if we're gonna do this, let's make money at it. We need to,
Oh, no, we're not, there's no way you can't make money at
okay,
it.
good.
Well, it's hoped to offset the cost of running the service of a health department,
Yeah.
which is now going to incur more responsibilities in addition to the inspection program because of nitrogen, because of more engineering plans, more inspections, more management. It's in essence to hope to offset any additional cost to the taxpayer. So in essence, yes. Will it be construed as profitable? I don't know that I would use that word, but self-sufficient for the whole health department would be a big bonus to the town of Wareham.
One thing, you gotta remember, we're not looking to make money, but it's gonna happen. It's a safety issue is why we're doing this, to make sure to cover the owner and the people that are renting. But I can't see why it's not gonna go to the top.
Tom, I say there's also the potential, some of the items we deal with now, like capital for vehicles and stuff like that,
Right.
hopefully it would turn out to be like the harbor master, where the fund would have enough that even their vehicles would come out of there.
Okay.
Exactly.
The only reason why I brought
That's
it
a
up is,
maybe, that eventually falls in the realm of the town administrator and the county department.
and that's great, I'm glad to see it, someone coming forward and trying to find, money that we can actually, to help us, this is great.
Mr. Donahue?
Thank you. I agree with just what was said nicely. To clarify, this is a new program that we're going to put in place. And it sounds like we're relatively all on board with this. We're always pleased with anything that brings more revenue into the town. One of the things we need to do is sell it to town meeting. So to call it profitable or as a moneymaker is a little bit scary, because then you're gonna start to get people saying, oh, you're gonna take money out of our pockets, or it's a little bit shaky. But I think what we would like to do is, when we get the program all together, is really come strongly and make sure that we can support it fully. And for two reasons, something I said when we were doing the budget hearings. We have financial concerns, and then there are political concerns. Financial concerns are obviously, it makes sense. We have a revolver, we have a program that can run itself and can help support itself. And political reasons are how it really will improve the town across the board. So I think we can very clearly come up with a way to outline that, so thank you very much.
Quick
Mr.
question,
McDonald?
definition?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Cattouli, you're.
I just, a quick definition is, when you're talking about, you've got condominiums, cottages, guest houses, rooming houses, private, the condominiums, I understand, I don't know, but we have a lot of, condos that are turning over a lot. But how does this affect the very few B&Bs we have, or if somebody decides to convert a house into a bed and breakfast? I mean, does that fall under like a hotel? Or does it fall into, there's some people that have, rows of cottages that turn over every week.
I would think that's just one. If it's a B&B.
Well, they wouldn't be inspected every week. They would be inspected annually.
So
So if you've got 5 cottages, then you're gonna pay $100 to register those 5 cottages and $25 for each unit to inspect every year. That's what you're gonna pay.
Okay, and what about your bed and breakfast? So if you've got a bed and breakfast
If
with
it's a-
5 unit, five rental rooms,
Yep,
are they paying the 5 rental rooms?
they should, yes.
Gray area.
Well, if you wanna create, we can create all the gray areas we want.
I don't think it's a
That's-
gray area.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear.
I think bed and breakfast belong under hotels.
Yeah, I think they belong
So-
in the hotels.
My question is, one thing I love about Marilyn, she likes to smack that thunder right out of my hand. If we're gonna go to town meeting and we are going to sell this, I would think that we would have some sort of a financial breakdown, just a perspective look at it, so that we can sell it. It's easy to say, well, we're gonna make money, let's show it. I don't wanna, we're going to cover the cost. Well, however we're gonna sell it, but let's have something from a financial standpoint that we can sell to the people, not just from the standpoint that it's gonna improve the town, but also that it's gonna fund a department, which will take the pressure off and maybe provide money for another department that way. That's something I would be looking for.
Sure.
Mr. Trudeau?
From my perspective, if you're successful in funding the enterprise fund, that's good. So my
Revolver, you
concern-
mean revolver?
Your revolving fund, sorry. I go back to John McCullough talking about sending out inspectors because of the fact that people were living in units that had in-the-wall heaters. And having known one individual that was in one of those units, from where I come from, it's not a question of the money. It's a question of the quality of life that we say that we are responsible for. It's a question of saying that if you're going to generate revenue from something, the people that are paying this revenue have a level of certainty of safety, heating, whatever. So from my perspective, it isn't a question of selling profitability, it's a question of the quality of life that we purport to have for our community. And that's the way I approach it.
And that's how you solve it.
Self-funded.
And that's
I agree with you
exactly
a
what
hundred percent. That's what we're trying to get away from.
All right, if I may, the FinCom isn't gonna sell anything.
Right.
It's not our
Thank
job
you.
to sell anything.
No, exactly.
Our job is to make sure that the questions that have come up, some of the questions that have come up tonight about standards, et cetera, are in the program. It's a viable program, all right? It's a program that can support itself and that the ability to properly account for it in the town exists. If it finds itself in a surplus situation, that's very good for us. We also have to face the fact that there might be instances where there's always a chance of a deficit. All right, the town administrator is gonna have to clearly lay this out for us, I think, before we do any voting on it. But my main thing was, I wanted to bring everybody up to date because this conversation came out of our all-day meeting. They did a great job of coming, I think Bob's done a great job of coming up with a program and getting an article out there, along with Mr. Sullivan. There was some question as to whether or not we could do something that quickly. It's probably something that's a little overdue, but it's the right way to go. If it can support itself, I think, I know we'll give it serious consideration, one way or another. Okay, all be, I just want to give you the opportunity to express it to everybody. You got all 9 of us instead of 3 of us.
Yes, thanks for the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
I'd like to next skip to inspectional services.
Welcome, David.
Aren't we a fun bunch?
Good evening, Mr. Moore.
Good evening.
How are you? Let me explain to everybody why I invited you to come back. All right, I sent everybody an email the last couple of days, where we had the list from. It was the actual report from the ISO, which is the Insurance Services Office. All right, attached to it was, I put a cover on there, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. I have a cover I'll send to everybody again, which explains what ISO is. All right, Insurance Services Office basically is an agency that provides ratings to actuaries who in turn advise underwriters, all right, as to the risk involved in insuring certain properties. All right, every 5 years, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a process for inspection. There is a checklist. It is one of those checklists you go down and you check the blocks, and in some cases there's values that are added, a sum total is taken, and a rating is issued. And it affects everybody in the town. Well, I wanted to ask you to give us an understanding of that again, because we're going to be rated again in 4 years. And where we stand right now is a very bad rating. All right, but we also have to make sure that we do something quickly so that we get on track for the next inspection. Otherwise, we will continue to pay heavily for our problem. Dave, I believe it's David, correct, if you would?
Yes.
May I call you David, sir?
Certainly. I've got to talk to Mr. Sullivan about this, and I've stressed greatly that whoever is hired for a full-time building commissioner this ISO document should be on his desk and for his plans for the future. And there have been some deficiencies in the past in inspectional services because of the people who are running the department. And with the new person coming in as a licensed building commissioner, and he goes by what the deficiencies are and correct those, and they're not all that difficult. Most of the building commissioners out there now are exam certified as opposed to being grandfathered in, and that's gonna help you right there. The local commissioner you have right now is certified by exam, and he's also in the process of getting certified as the local inspector, I'm saying, not the commissioner. The local inspector is in the process of working his way up, become certified as a building commissioner, although he will stay as a local official, I believe, this time. So the new people coming in, just their presence being certified by exam will add points to the town, which the town lost last time.
Mr. Bell?
As I remember your presentation, we were paying approximately a 17% premium on our insurance because of the position we found ourselves in after the inspection, and that no matter what we do, it's not going to change anything for the next 4 years. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Question is, where do we stand at the end of that 4 years?
Well, I guess some of my frustration, if I may, has been, this issue went on with the town administrator, previous town administrator, and Board of Selectmen didn't step in, and now every resident is paying on their insurance premiums result of those actions or inactions.
That's the circumstance right now. The question is, what do we do going forward? That's the reason why I asked them to come in to discuss this. They mentioned it to us. The form I sent you gives you, it's split between commercial and residential. You can see the point spreads. It's 100 points per section. I think it's a very easy document to read. I think I almost could go in and do the inspection.
Yeah.
It's basically, I'm gonna ask you questions, you're gonna give me answers, and I'm gonna check blocks.
Yes.
All right, and a lot of these things, if we had these ahead of time, as you said, all right, or even once we hire the person coming in the door, handing them this list and saying, I want progress in the next year, all right, it's a perfect document to do that, set goals for as well. Mrs. Donahue?
Effectively, that's like a management review. These are the things that we can see what our scores are, what we need to bring up. Is there anything else besides the director of the inspectional services, the areas that we're lacking that we should also be looking at? I noticed one of the issues was sufficient support staff.
Well, you have the director of inspectional services, the secretarial staff, the filing, everything that happens in the office is all rated in this document.
Is there any, the situation as it is over there now, what else are we critically missing?
I would say some support, secretarial support eventually. Talked with Mr. Sullivan about getting some help for the secretary, because when people come to the window and the window is closed, because the inspectors are out and the secretary might happen to be out to lunch, they turn around and go home and they do the work anyways. And they just avoid the permits. We lose tax revenue. That shows up on the ISO report that they're short-staffed, and it all adds to the problem.
Mr. McDonald?
So we received an 8 out of 10, which is not good.
Right.
When they come back in 5 years, will we start with a clean slate, or are they going to come in here and alter it, obviously with the previous report, and then go from there? I mean, how does that work? So that
It's my understanding you start with a clean slate, because over a 5-year period, it's likely that repairs and things are gonna happen to buildings that were done 5 years ago. So as long as they know that you're up to standards at the end of that 5-year period, you know you're working towards bringing other things, the structures are slowly being brought up to code and up to date
that's where I was
to
going.
improve the whole package.
So I think I believe the number that was quoted was 17% increase in insurance
Yes.
rates. So if we went down and suddenly we came up with a 2, would we see that drop
Yes,
dramatically as well? Okay,
that's what I'm told by the ISO.
okay, thank you very much.
All right, again, it goes back to understand the ISO is issuing their report to the actuaries. The actuary's job is to evaluate risk.
Right.
If they hear that a building, that if you don't have the codes in place, all right, then they will assume that the structures, all right, will not be strong in hurricane force, hurricane 5, et cetera. All right, and that's how the insurance is set. The actuary comes back and says the risk factor is X, and the underwriter says, in that case, I'm gonna charge you what, X plus.
Ms. Moore, is this a new inspection, or did we have one 6 years ago as well, and how did we do on it then, do you know?
I don't know what the previous numbers were, but I know the people you had on staff here 5 years ago, and previous to that, Mr. Collins and Mr. Miziak.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they were doing a much better job than what happened over the last 3 years. But I
Okay.
don't know what that number is, something that we could get from the.
I would be curious as to that, because this is the first time I've been on the FinCom for 6 years, I believe. And this is the first time that I've seen this, this process introduced to us here by, and I commend you for bringing it to all of our attentions, because I'm sure Mr. Sullivan, I'm sure he's been aware of it, but it's really coming up front to us, and it's really something that we as a town and we as a FinCom should make sure that is being monitored.
The ISO has been rating towns by their fire departments for years, how the quality of your fire department, how far you live from a fire hydrant and so forth. It's only since Hurricane Andrew devastated southern Florida that inspectional services were brought into it, because they found the houses were just disintegrating with a little bit of wind, well, with a lot of wind, but they were disintegrating when they shouldn't have been. The damage shouldn't have been that great. So where I worked previous to this in Bridgewater, I believe the first time I was seen was probably around 98, and then I was seen again around 2005. And they were up there again. It's 5 or 6 years they come by.
Right.
And they rate the town.
Well, thank you. Enlightening us.
As a practical matter, the reason why, again, I asked Mr. Moore to come in and go through this is, as we look at the budget, we start saying, oh, we're gonna dip here, we're gonna dip here, and we'll take a little out over here, do we really need a person at this level, et cetera. Well, the thing, this should have taught us that we need to know what the unintended consequences are. It may seem okay, all right, but if we've got somebody in the background or something in the background that we don't know about, if we haven't thoroughly vetted it, it can be extremely expensive to everybody. Anybody who has $1,000 insurance premium, this is the estimate now is about $170 more this year because of this rating for the next 4 years. All right, so
Not only does it affect the ISO, but our floodplain insurance. There are over 2,000 policies in Wareham of flood insurance. And the flood program wasn't being implemented as it should have been. And we had some people in the office, so probably, I think it was November or early December, Mr. Carlson came out from the state, and he looked at a number of permits, and he said, okay, explain these. And we had to do some digging to try to explain them, and we've made some corrections. So Wareham is not in trouble in that area, but if they had kept going where they were going, they would have been in big trouble, and there would have been surcharges on all of the floodplain insurance. But we've been able to turn that around.
Mr. Worthing? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, here's just label.
The fast math again on my side. On my side is, I think the average insurance premium is such in this town that if the 17% is a true number, we're probably looking more at a couple $100 per property. We're looking at 10,000 properties. We're looking at $2 million going to the insurance companies that I would rather have seen in our coffers, because I'm sure we know exactly where we now need to spend it, especially with more snow coming this weekend. Any more questions for Mr. Moore? Mr. Worthing?
No.
No?
Just wanted to
Thank
say
you very
thank
much.
you.
Next thing next item on the agenda I'd like to do is the town administrator.
Frank a question before we start. What's the news here? Any news?
She's still pregnant.
Okay, it's
Any news?
I guess you are.
news.
Let's put it this way, if the phone goes off in the middle of this presentation, you probably won't even tell us.
All right, I'm just checking on you, Derek, that's all.
And I missed last week, so I figured for here, for the TA spot, how hard that so that's what we would have.
No, did you see the news? Did you see the news?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, yeah.
You saw the picture of Tweedledee and Tweedledum, right?
It was strange when you guys got better looking. I don't know.
It wasn't a big stretch.
I got it for Donna.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you,
No, I don't mind.
Is the guest you're expecting?
Yeah, I don't know who that is, but feel free to go at them first.
Obviously, he was hoping to be sooner on the agenda.
This is not a the first thing I'd like to say is this is not the sort of mid-year summary on there. It's just a simple extension of the monthly expenditure report. The revenues are not on there right now, which really would be more part of, if we can try and get a mid-year report together. Because we've done the other reports on there, you'll see there's really 3 items that are causing me concern with the trending. The police salary right now, which is on page 3, it's trending better, but it's in the November report, they were 11.8% over the expected year-to-date expended. And in December, the police salary is only 3.1% over, which means it's trending in the right direction. That would have been about a $42,000 monthly expenditure change. We know they always ramp up during the summer. There's much more patrols and such. However, I have real concerns right now with the staffing that they have. The reduced staffing, as we've been speaking about, means that's filled by overtime. And the 2 retirements that they had cost roughly $60,000 in payouts. It's in the normal times, our overtime during these periods would be next to nothing on there. However, not being able to fill those positions, not having a way to recruit in there. There's no police academies that have people ready in there, and don't forget, when there is an academy, you're still training them for another year. So there's no easy fix of putting the ad in the paper, and we don't, right now, there's the morale and sort of concern within the department. We probably would not be getting any transfers. In fact, I am not allowing a lateral transfer from our town to another because of staffing issues. If I allowed that, it would increase our overtime as well. So I'm actually holding somebody from changing their job, and we are allowed to do that through civil service and being the appointing authority.
Good. You sure you can?
Not, just to go into the police budget, and I know that's important to have the officers, and I'm not here to criticize that aspect or anything, but just a point of interest. Why, in the name of goodness, would we pay $80 an hour for 2 police officers to ride up and down on wave runners when we can pay 2 harbor people $11 an hour? Isn't that a little bit abusive? I mean, isn't that a little place that we could cut and we wouldn't have, you know, I mean, it's just, it's ludicrous to pay $80 an hour and you can pay harbor people $11, they make $11 an hour and the police make $40 an hour on, say, double time or Sunday. Hello?
It was
Yeah.
double time on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
for sure on there.
Yeah, it was.
We've seen it on there
Yeah.
because, was it in addition to normal shifts, or
Well, it was-
was that their shifts that then they were scheduled for? So even when you work on Sunday, it's not, was it contractual to be double time and a half? I guess my statement on there is, how much money was that altogether? What was the purpose of it? And I think you had the opportunity to ask the chief of police during the budget hearings.
I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I would think, in all honesty on this,
Mm-hmm.
small potatoes.
Well, not to me, it isn't.
Oh, please. The other side is we were talking about asking the chief to come back to go into his budget and a second task.
Okay.
Because of some specific items that we had questions on, which we did not address that particular day, because we didn't have all our members there. All right, and it was not really, the questions we're looking to ask are vetting questions.
I think there was a
And
question.
they should be directed to him at this point, I guess, but again, he has no obligation to answer. Mariana?
What we just learned about the building inspections, and they hid the cost of not doing things. Do we have mandates on staffing, or is that totally determined by what the town's needs are? In other words, are we subject to some kind of penalties or losing funds or something if we don't have certain levels of staffing?
We have established minimum staffing levels per shift.
But that's
And
established by you,
I
the
believe
board of
it's,
selectmen?
no, I believe it's established by either the police department, and also they're an accredited department, so it's part of the accreditation as well on there, and it's a safety matter.
Oh, I understand that, I'm just wondering if we have to do budget cuts and then we find out that because we're cutting, we're going to pay on the other end, I'd just like to know that ahead of time.
Yeah, we have, the police department's a lot like some of our other department where there's a black and white budget issue on there, then you have to bring in the quality of life issues and such, and we have to depend what we wanna pay for on there and what we're getting in return. And part of that is, in a way, when there's certain elements that the police have brought in that they believe is part of the quality of life function. Not everybody's agreeing with it. I know that we were laughed at for the Humvees. They were invaluable during the snowstorms. The only way to get out was with those Humvees, and they were literally going to people's doors and carrying them out of their homes. So we may not agree with everything, but I believe there's always a purpose behind it.
Mr. Wareham?
I can't let you get away with that. If we don't have the staff and we're gonna run out of money because of overtime, don't you have to cut back and live within the staff you've got and the budget you have? I mean, you just can't, if you're leaking, the boat's leaking, you gotta fix the leak. You just don't say, okay, we're gonna bail harder.
What you're asking is, when do we start shutting down parts of shifts? When do we stop using
To
certain
live within our
cards?
manpower, yes.
And I guess one of the thoughts is on there, if we look at the budget that was from the police department 3 years to where it is now, we've greatly reduced that budget. We don't budget enough for them on there. It's going to be, if you look at it, we simply do not. Now, you're asking me, when are we going to shut it down? I've been speaking with the chief, and he's been making moves to lower it. I have concerns, because every shift, no matter what, we're filling with overtime, because you can't have just 3 guys out there if people are sick.
No.
At some point, you have to figure out whether you want this town to be safe or if you want to save a few dollars. And that's the emotional aspect of it, that we have to figure to give a dollar value to that.
If you don't have the dollars, you can't spend. And you're sitting there saying, I'm gonna run a deficit if I continue to run as I'm running, and I cannot hire people to fill the vacancies I have at straight time.
No, what I'm saying is, I have concerns
Getting
of the
more and more
way we're
difficult.
trending. We have reduced the overtime, by about 8% per month, which is $43,000, that we're doing everything possible to save money on there, and we're trending in the right way. So, but if you're asking me if I'm pulling police off the streets right now, the answer is no.
Obviously, yeah.
We also have the fact that we have 6 more months to go, and there's also the items here that it comes down to, yes, the chief's responsible for his departmental day by day, the town administrator is responsible for his day by day, but some of what you're asking is also a matter of public policy that has to be changed. All right, which comes down to the board of selectmen saying, they either want to maintain or reduce the levels of the police department. It becomes their problem as to whether or not we deficit spend. They can give him whatever directions they want by a majority, Mr. Trudell.
I feel I'm losing my discussion on the budget here. However, Chief did make some impressive points when he talked about our crime statistics. Or necessarily the impressive points that I wanted to hear, but he made an impressive point that where we rated amongst other towns in the community. And I know that we hired some police officers in previous years to try and reduce our overtime, and that's kind of not working too well. Was any thought given to using reserve officers? And I'm sure there's contractual issues there involved. It seemed to me, as the chief said, that was the best bargain that he had.
I'm unable to speak about that.
Fine, that answers my question, thank you.
I was gonna go with Frank's point that it's somewhere along the line, I think it comes back to, and I agree with you, if we don't have the police cars, then we certainly can't. We're going to have to pay for the police cars somewhere down the line. We need those. Other things like that, but it really comes down to what, as a executive branch, they make a priority. I really, that's what it comes down to. If they say public safety is a priority, which it should be, then it'll go in that direction. But my main question is, maybe I'm, again, just new to this whole municipal accounting thing, but I'm not gonna send a zinger out. Deficit spending is not something we can do, correct? I mean, is it frowned upon, or is it something that's beyond frowned upon?
The term illegal is an accounting term on there, so it is an illegal deficit. But does that mean you're going to jail over it?
No, I don't think we're going to jail.
Yeah, technically, I think you can on that part of it.
Well, not me, because I didn't overspend.
Yeah, but,
It's beyond my pay grade.
there's items we do throughout the year when you start seeing that things are trending negatively. Some of them which are, you say they're in control, but in a way they're not. I've lost 2 dispatchers, 3 retired officers. I've had 1 officer out for 7 months for sick leave, another officer out for, let's see, that one's only 3 weeks, that's a good one. This one's been out since May on sick leave, and I have another out since August on administrative.
You've got to cover that. Plus pay there.
Yep, usually for the most six on there. And then we have, you do have liability issues on it. I can't quantify it, but I can tell you if we have a shift with reduced officers and one of those officers were to be injured in the line of duty, whether it's something, I can guarantee you there'll be a lawsuit on that. If there's a person that finds out we didn't staff officers and something happened to them, there's gonna be a lawsuit on that. We get sued probably every other week, I'm not gonna lie, it's the cost of doing business of being the corporation known as the town of Wareham. But those are some of the factors that you have to consider on that.
I think what's important is that we're now aware of the trending, we know what's happening. He's got a period of time, 6 months, to try to deal with it. I suspect there's probably seasonal programs, et cetera, that might have to be modified. There's a whole number of things that the chief can try to do. We won't know if we're deficit spent until we get to June 30th, but in the meantime, we can try to do everything in their power. And we'll have to see. It's too soon to say that, this is totally out of control or something. I don't think we can say that at this point. We have to give them the opportunity to put their ducks in a row.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I know, I'm going to apologize to Madam Chair on there, because the small potatoes comment was flippant, and it wasn't what I should be saying on there, and when I'm canceling some of the law books that we have and doing other things to save $1,000, it's not, so I apologize and retract that statement, hopefully you'll accept that.
Absolutely. I'm just looking for, I know it's small here and small there, but, it just, if we can get those things under control, we can, all of these small things, it can add up to a larger picture. And I'm just, as you are trying to do, we're just trying to keep our schools and keep our kids getting what they need. And I'm looking everywhere. And obviously you look at the larger budgets and you say, how can we? Where can we? And that's basically all I was doing. It's not it was not meant, what I was saying was not meant to be a personal attack at all. It's just, it was a financial one.
And I think it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Mr. Trudell?
I just received a notice that there'll be 2 elections in April and 1 in June.
Mm-hmm.
Has that pretty well crippled the town clerk's budget and her election numbers?
Here I am being flippant again, I would say it's the Finance Committee Reserve Fund that's been crippled.
Okay, I got buy into that.
However, but that has ramifications, and maybe, would you share that with everybody, because it did have, this election is having ramifications for the town. No, but hear them out.
Well, there was, if you remember last year, the police pickup was in an accident, and we were able to purchase a new one using reserve funds. This year, and I swear they're not doing it to get new vehicles, because we have actual cash value on those older ones. An officer was in an accident, and the vehicle was totaled down there. We received several $1,000s on it, and the chief said, well, can we do it again this year, like we did last year? We need that vehicle. It's a patrol and one of the supervisor's vehicles. And he wrote up the warrant article, did a great job, brought it to me, I said, you can't do it. I said, what do you mean the finance committee has money? I said, at the end of it, we're dedicating another $30,000 to the elections, which means there's not enough money to cover in that, and even if there was enough money, we still need to hold that in reserve in case of any emergencies on there. So these elections, people might say, well, ooh, another vehicle wasn't purchased, but it has ramifications.
Thank you.
I just want to ask.
I'm sorry. Tom, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You fine?
Okay, you're up.
I just want to ask the burning question, what did the snowstorm cost, and is there any relief from other sources?
We won't know totally what it's cost. We still have some of the costs of the trees coming in and the extra gas we needed to purchase. One of the things we have to remember is the fuel pumps went down at the municipal maintenance when they lost the power to them as well. So, but the storm, we're looking several $100,000 as of right now. Without, I think as of February 15th, we were 106 over on the snow and ice budget, which is 191,000. So you're up to 297. There could be an additional cost of up to $100,000 on there for the cleanup of the trees and
Legal
and
deficit.
such. Yeah, and that one is a legal deficit.
But was there any chance that there would be state funds back when it was declared a state of emergency?
We're hoping for that. but I can guarantee you, we will not receive those in this fiscal year.
Okie dokie then.
So, that'll be in deficit, it's a legal deficit,
Okay.
and how we handle it will be done through the tax rate setting process.
Okay.
Mr. Worthing?
The one thing I would like to suggest is that the police chief or his staff come up with ways that are out ahead in terms of getting more efficient in the use of his people. With predators and whatever, not predators, whatever the little things that fly around. But with surveillance cameras and things of that nature, so that won't help us this year, but 3 or 4 years down the road, we will operate with fewer people, rather than all of a sudden saying we need more people or we need more overtime, because we're running it the same way we've always run the ship.
And I'm not ignoring you on this, I want to pull up a quick date. I would advise if you can watch it or attend the Selectmen's March 5th meeting. I think the police will be doing a presentation that I think will be informative on there for what they're doing.
Mark, that date again, please?
March 5th.
I'm guessing it's a Tuesday.
Mr. Gray had asked previously that, you're passing, okay. This is on,
He's just whispering to me, I'm really saying all his comments.
no, he waited, well, he was waiting.
I thought that's.
On that same topic, through you to anyone that knows the answer, what is Wareham's policy on flagmen as opposed to police on the street? Plymouth went through it, and I listened ad nauseum to all the debate that they had, but they do ultimately use flagmen as opposed to officers on detail work.
Yeah, it's prevailing wage on there, so you're paying almost the same amount.
Okay. But what I was thinking was to kind of
Alleviate the
alleviate the crunch of
overtime.
overtime.
Right.
And not so, that wasn't a financial issue, that goes to quality of life for these officers who we're asking to do so much anyway.
But I believe those are details, so
Mhm.
they're not in our overtime
Right,
whatsoever.
they get
The
paid.
detail's completely separate on that,
They get paid to the contractor.
yeah, so the town
Right, but
doesn't.
what I'm saying is they're already doing overtime for us. How much more work do they get, do they need? If they're paying better if the private contractor is paying better, then more power to our officers to be able to earn that income. I just didn't know if we had bylaws in place that didn't allow it, or if that was a contract.
It's not a budget issue. Budget questions?
I had one, but I didn't know if we were gonna cover it under item F, the capital budget. Last time we had met, we were talking about the general situation at the police department, and I know that we were cognizant of a year ago that we needed to put in a better generator.
That's item F.
Item F,
No,
okay.
that's not-
Good move, Frank.
That's item F. We got a little, he's got a pregnant wife, we got at midnight. Any other questions on the budget?
I think the only other two items are veteran services on page 5. And while there's only 3 items, in case anybody's, I thought I heard my phone buzzing over there. While there's 3 items, there's been, during the process of this, there've been more items on there. As we've explained them, I haven't put them on there again. But the veteran services look to be, and this is one of the interesting things, in the beginning, it was, you have a one-time charge of about $23,000. That's for the Veterans Administration of there. And then we're paying monthly for whatever veterans benefits are being paid out. So at the beginning of the year, we were about $19,500. So in between $19,500, $20,000. However, in the last 3 months, it's gone up to approximately $25,000, which means there were people that were added to our town's benefits. That trend line's not a good one for where we're looking at. What I'm going to do is reach out to the veteran service agents and see whether there was have we added some people? Are they permanent on there? Because I can't tell from just the numbers we get. We basically just get a charge on there. So, and that's one of the items that, you know, we can't turn that off. We can't stop that spending.
Our reimbursement is 75%, right?
Well, technically on there, and that's through your local unrestricted aid.
Okay.
So that's our state aid, so you're basically getting that, the next year, you can say we've already received that, so.
Okay.
And then the FICA line, which we had to use the Municipal Relief Act to fund, it's just a little bit of a concern. We're doing, believe it or not, we're doing better than we did last year because we have less staff on, in some of the departments, and some positions we haven't filled and such, so you save a little bit of money there. But at the beginning of this year, I brought forward to this committee that I believe that it was gonna go into a deficit, and it's still trending in that way, not what it was last year, but this one, approximately $16,000. We have saved in some of the departments by not hiring people, by keeping positions open and waiting on there, and also by putting a hold on expenses. You know, we've saved money that will cover all of these, and then some, but we're still, that's not the purpose of it. Really, holding that other money is a safety net, especially since we know that the reserve fund is essentially expended.
So that was the good news, right?
That was my glowing good news, and I gotta work on my delivery.
Any further questions on the budget? Any further report?
No, but I would ask if you go through it and if you have any concerns, but you'll see mainly on the expenses, at the beginning of the year, we have a lot of especially in technology, we pay up front for a lot of it if it's not a monthly contract. So you'll see at the beginning of the year, it looks like it's skewed, that we're gonna go way over budget. Because as you've probably seen, as you go through each of these reports, it starts steadying out. We also have, being part of summer community, the extra costs that we have during the year, and you know, the 2/3 is at the beginning of the fiscal year of July and August, and September still, when you consider it, one of the months where we still have a lot of people here. So, you know, they are trending back in the right direction, and you know, I appreciate the hard work that the department heads are doing to keep their budgets in line. That's not to say we'll rule out at some point. Actually, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to give anybody a heads up.
Any other items?
I just wanted to, the ambulance situation. I mean, the blizzard, we had 130 calls and we only had one ambulance working in town. In the existing storm, we had an ambulance down, one ambulance down for 4 days. And we've already exceeded the budget for the year for maintenance. What are we going to do? Because this is I'm sure this is on your mind.
Yes, that's.
What are we gonna do? Get anything? Nothing new?
At the selectmen's meeting, when they approved the Walmart sewer, part of that mitigation was $200,000 to go towards an ambulance or public safety items.
But isn't that like after they get an occupancy permit and all that?
Right, so
We're
that's
gonna be at
9
least a
months
year.
away. So we're looking at other alternatives as to either ramp that up or to start the process. Because don't forget, unless I'm buying it off, you know, Crazy Al's used ambulance lot, it's a 6-month process.
Okay, so we wanna, you know.
Have a car wash, raise money.
you know. I was just concerned about,
Is bonding considering that it's a 6 to 9 month process, is that a viable option?
You could bond for it to purchase it ahead of time, and then it's the release on there. We're also looking into potentially leasing it and then using those monies to pay it off. We are looking into it. It's not a dead subject. I'm just not, most of these need to be vetted, because I can come up with the greatest idea in the world, and it might not fly for whether it's legal or what have you. So I've learned to not tell people when the great idea is out there till it's fully been vetted.
Tim had not why. Who's the Tim around?
I think it's great, you know, on the thing with, trying to get one from Walmart. Any other major projects that are coming forward that we could do the same thing that we know of?
Hotel.
The hotel?
That's
Put it in the-
Is it? Okay. All right.
Mr. Worthy?
Where is the EMS on here, on this?
Actually,
It's
that
not on
one,
that sheet.
it's not on there, it's an offset receipt on there. So that should be done when we do the EMS, actually the water pollution control.
Off the top of your head, what does that cost us per day?
Per day on there?
Yeah, people and space and equipment and everything else.
I'm going to tell you, I'm ignorant of to give you that number. I'm ignorant of giving you the number right off the top of my head right there. We have about an $850,000 budget on there.
Is that for people and?
That's for people and
ambulance?
expenses, does not include their benefits and fringe and such on there. If our ambulance brings in roughly $1.2 million worth of receipts every year, they have their own building, there's costs with that, and we're looking into getting a true idea of the costs versus the revenues of it.
You're looking at that?
Right, so the way the ambulance, and I think Mr. Evans explained this, we have enough staff for one ambulance on any run. If we have a second ambulance, then what's happening is they're calling in, they have on-call paramedics and such on there. We don't staff more than for one ambulance per shift. Which is not, and I'm not saying we don't need a second or a third ambulance on there, please don't think that's what I'm saying.
Mr. Trudell?
Given that the fire department has some EMTs, and they generally roll unless they know the ambulance is already covering it, is there any chance that in those kind of situations that you put out with the driver that someone from the fire department can cover the second person slot?
I think that's something that would have to be discussed between the district and the town.
I kind of figured that.
What did you just ask? Say that again.
I just asked that since the fire department actually rolls a vehicle and they have some EMTs, that in a situation like that, was there any possibility that one of them could be the second person on the ambulance?
Yes, they've done it. I can say strategically they've done it, but that's a safety issue, that's their life-saving, they take an oath to do that, and that's what they do. They work in conjunction with each other, oh yeah.
Well, he was talking that you have to call someone in, and that was.
Well, generally, yeah, they call their own staff, but they've always got somebody on call for the second.
We don't have a written MOU with them or anything like that, but if they have somebody that's trained for it and we are lacking the staff, they have been involved in some of it. But I'm not going to officially say that.
Thank you.
Anything further?
No, I appreciate it, I know that.
Yeah, I had, I wanted to tell the committee about something, but I can wait till
Any further questions?
Thank you.
safe ride home. Hopefully you'll get a policy, you better be on the way.
Yeah. And I do know there was an email, I think some copies dispersed, to the finance committee regarding the Upper Cape cod tax. So I thought that was something that'd be of interest to the committee.
So you want to explain what that was?
Yeah, and I think it was
Just in general, just very quickly.
yeah, it was just a brief memo.
If you don't
that-
tell them why they should read it, they won't read it.
I'm just reading it.
It was a brief memo that was put together, and I appreciate the hard work done from the, Mr. Murphy. That's, it's a funny word to use, interns and such, but he's been working with the superintendent, and there's some great information put together. He's also a gentleman who's worked in, or been a part of school committees in other towns that have gone through similar issues that we have. It may feel like we're the only ones ever facing these sorts of issues at one time, but there's been some cycles and some other communities have faced it and have fared well doing it. So he brings an interesting perspective on there, and some of the items on there, you'll see the 5-year comparison of the Chapter 74 per student tuition, what they're paying on the tuition, what the admissions and tuition rates are. It's not a true structured document on there, but it's got a lot of great information. I think this committee would be well worth reading and asking questions about it, especially for when the superintendent, Mr. Dutch, would be in front of the committee. And there's more information that will follow. I'm not giving it its true value.
Anything else? When will we receive our next update on the budget?
You'll receive that before the end of this week.
Okay.
And there, one,
If I could make a comment regarding the budget, I did, we were talking about the budget. I did hear from Chairman Holmes tonight before I came in, and he wanted to set up a meeting. He's got a meeting date in mind that we can work together on the budget and meeting all the department heads. And he'd like to see if it was.
You already met him.
What? No, he's,
Oh, okay.
pardon?
Where were we, Sam?
I'm just telling you what,
Yes, okay.
what was passed on to me this evening before I came, just before I came here. He called me. I called him last week and said that we wanted to discuss the budget. And, the warrant articles. He wants to go over all the warrant articles too. And he was wondering if we could do this Saturday, is it March 2nd, I believe it is?
I don't know, excuse me, say that again, because you said,
I know.
you said 2 things at once there, so what exactly is it he wishes to discuss? The budget itself?
Well, we want to meet with all the proponents of different warrant articles.
Okay.
Okay, and instead of us talking to them and then the selectmen talking to them, we can both talk to them.
Okay, proponents
time.
of articles, we're not talking department heads, that got mixed up.
Yeah, that was me, that was just me.
Okay.
So slack a hair.
some of them are, some of them are
Some of our
department
department
heads. There are
Okay.
warrant articles being brought forth by the department heads, and I think we have one petitioner article on there. I don't know if he means that one as well, so it would be the department heads speaking about their articles. Obviously, there's gonna be a lot that we're not going over, which would be the budget articles and such. We really don't have the numbers established for them.
That's tentative date, March 2nd, or is that?
Well, he wanted to know if March 2nd was all right with everyone here, and he said, he said the selectmen are very flexible, and they can start as early as 8 o'clock in the morning, this Saturday.
That's not flexible.
Well, I'm just telling you what he said.
What sort of venue are we speaking of?
I just told you.
Where? Venue? Where?
The cafeteria.
It wasn't,
I think he said the
the place. You said the cafeteria to you?
No, I thought, that's in a meeting last night, he talked to the,
I had proposed the cafeteria
oh, it was you.
on
Yeah.
there.
He suggested it.
Sorry.
Okay.
I don't know what their thoughts are, you'd have to ask
Yeah.
the chairman.
Madam Chair, I will not be in attendance on that date.
Traveling?
Well, I'm trying to be here for town meeting, less bingo, less Elks meeting, but definitely I'm on travel.
All right, well, we wrap this section up first, and then we can discuss it later, as usual. It's under new business.
I just, before he left, because I'm certainly, Derek, unless his child is born, would probably be there as well. So I just want, obviously you knew about it too.
Thursday,
Before I
8
did.
AM is perfect.
What?
Thursday, 8 AM is perfect.
Is that March 2nd?
No, I'm
I thought you
joking.
said Saturday. Oh, no.
No, that's.
Okay. All right, that's all I had to, I just wanted to bring it up to Derek.
So that's a proposed meeting, or is it gonna?
We'll talk about it. No,
Well,
let's talk about
it's
it.
up to us.
We'll talk about it after.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's wrap up the rest of the items, so. That's it?
Is there?
Thank you.
No other items in there?
No, the only other, well, unless you want to listen to the capital budget items, which would also probably include a little bit of item B, which is water pollution control. Yeah, I'll give you a note if you want to go.
I will.
But you can also stay.
Thank
You're more than welcome to depart.
Yeah. I will leave this for your guests there in the future.
We had a meeting of the capital planning committee last Friday, and we were informed that there are no capital items with the exception of $60,000 for a renovation of the gas dispenser, gas pumping equipment at municipal maintenance, which failed in the storm.
And I think should have left, but there's one amendment to that. We placed on there an article for the purchase of books for the school as well as some technology updates in the amount of $397,000. That is being built into the budget.
No, so I didn't let him go out the door before I talked to the capital.
Yeah, you need to go home. No, really, it's in your best interest.
The 60,000 was unexpected. What happened basically was they fired up the generator, and the fire went out, and it basically fried the system. Okay, so, and they had said to us before that they were having problems with those pumps. All right, and there's no other backup we have. I think at one point, the town administrator said we had trucks going to Sagamore to get fuel. We had no way to pump it here in town. And that's a system that pretty much has to be replaced. We also know that we have a number of equipment failures in the water pollution control system. Right off the bat, 4 generators failed, and an additional 2 failed later on. And again, there's electrical problems in there as well. At some point, we'll have to get the information from Guy as to what he is going to have to do to repair all that stuff. One of the liaisons to water pollution control had discussion, and he has an obsolescence schedule he's trying to put together now. Basically, a repurchase schedule to go with the obsolescence schedule. So we have some idea going forward of what his department is going to need. It really hasn't been done before. He knows stuff is done, reaching the end of its life, but no one's ever sat down and said, well, this is what it's going to mean. It's becoming critically important. The question is how we're going to finance it. And typically, some will be done by retained earnings, some will be done by additional bonding, some will be done by maybe increases in EDUs. But the thing is, we've got to get that schedule together, and he is working on it. So that was part of it. The capital planning, we also have to a little bit thunderstruck for obvious reasons. One being, we have one ambulance. What are we going to do? So we're trying to find other ways to get it, but we're still even 6 months out. It's very discouraging to hear that we were 4 days without any ambulance.
And we have to pay people too?
Police cruisers are a non-issue. They are going to try to put up try to bond for the books. And that's one that will come up to us very shortly. You have in your packet, I want to tell you, remind you, do get in your packet all articles that have been submitted thus far by department heads. All right, and so you have that. We should probably start working on that as soon as we can. And at least we're starting to know. Sam?
On the capital budget items, maybe even more important than police cars, is there any resolution to radios for the police department? Because as I remember,
Well, as Tom would say, if you don't have the money, you can't buy them.
Well, that's right. So
What it comes down to.
I assume we didn't find the money on that either.
No, we didn't find the money. on that.
Medicinal marijuana thing going.
We didn't find the money on that. The other side too is when you discuss the capital, there's always the question of well, what happens with free cash. Right? And basically, you know, there are other issues that will have to be settled coming out of last year's audit where it says the free cash won't be there.
Yep.
There will be no free cash. So I don't have any answers, capital planning doesn't have any answers. All we know is the one emergency we do have is we have to pump gas and diesel during storms. We have to do that, so that's the one item that's coming up. The other, on the book side, you know, we've got, that's another critical item, but how do you meet the curriculum standards if you don't get the books? All right, we'll have to talk about that, the article's coming to us, it's here, we'll talk about it next meeting as to where we stand on it.
I'm unclear on the municipal maintenance, because there's $60,000 to replace the pump?
The pumps,
The pumps.
the gasoline pumps and the diesel pumps, that whole
So
system failed.
it wasn't a generator issue, it was a,
When the generator fired up, it's what fried the electrical system. All right, and then also David raised the issue about what do we do about the police station with its generator situation. And the answer there is it's the same thing. We're gonna have the money for another generator.
the, we can buy the gas at retail.
If you don't have power, they can't pump.
Well,
Hess came in there with a portable generator, it came in the back of a trailer to pump gas. So, there's,
Not until Sunday.
but, if we knew it was gonna happen in advance, we would have that portable generator on hand to say, to respond.
we had a generator, which generator are you talking about? One for the police station or?
No, I'm just talking about,
The gas pumps.
why do we
gas
have
pumps-
to have our own gas station at the municipal maintenance department? Just make a case
Well,
for that.
first and foremost is, the first and foremost thing in any situation with the fleet, you know, those I do, electricity goes down, all the gas stations have nothing.
I understand that.
All right, yet we still need to plow the roads, we still need to fuel the fire engines, the engines, they're done by the district. But we need to fuel all the fire, you know, all the police cars, all the plows, the subcontractors as well, because we don't wanna pay state tax.
That's
Right.
what, exactly.
That's one of the keys. Now, that is reimbursable, all right, yes, it can be reimbursed.
Yeah.
Right, but then the question is where's the nearest gas station that's still functional? This last time it was in Sagamore.
Okay,
So now we have to pay the time for them to drive over to Sagamore, sit in line to get gas, and drive back.
all right.
And then they can start plowing. That's the problem.
So we go and we sit down with Hess or whoever and say, we want a contract with you to provide gas to the town's vehicles. And part of the contract is that you have to have a generator to ensure us that we
It was
can
not
get.
the generator that was a problem. It was that the generator fried the electrical system.
I understand that, but
You know,
The generator would have meant nothing.
my question is, why spend $60,000 that you don't have
Because
when
we have to replace
when
the
you can have a
pumps.
temporary solution until the time when you got $60,000?
Not in this century.
It's the pumps.
What?
Not in this century.
Tom, we're not talking about replacing a generator. You're saying you want Hess to come in and put pumps in.
No, I want
No,
Hess
that's
to,
what the 60,000 is for.
He wants to just buy the
It's
gas
the
pumps.
I wanna drive up to a gas station and use that as my gas station.
Lot more money.
That's fine. And nothing else. It was, this last storm, it was an hour's drive to go over and get the gas and come back to do the plowing.
I understand that, but if you'd had a
But
contract,
that's Tom, how many trucks?
What he's saying is if we had a local person that we bought it from.
you contract.
Nobody had any gas, nobody had any electricity. There was nobody to pump.
But what he's saying is, if you
Come on.
bought the contract, you make sure that they had the generator.
This is way out of our,
It's way out of our purview. We don't micromanage the municipal maintenance department and come up with alternative plans.
Exactly.
Thank you.
But when they wanna come to us and you get $60,000 to do
They don't come
something,
to us, they're gonna come to the town meeting, And they're gonna ask for, and it's actually $88,000 according to this motion, by the way.
All right. Just as another way to kill a fish, what are the three or four options? What's plan B? And
Well, one
and
of
to
your
evaluate,
One
just,
of your options is when you're buying the gas and storing it yourself and pumping it yourself, you're paying wholesale. I don't care who you buy it from in a gas station, you're not gonna get it for wholesale. You're gonna have to pay full retail price. And your sales tax is gonna have to be reimbursable based on application. So there may be time for the, and if you're familiar with how the state pays, all right, it's gonna be very slow coming back. It could take anywhere 9 months to a year. That's why don't have any independent drugstores anymore.
And there's a finite amount of gasoline that the stations have in the ground, period, somewhere around 10 to 12.
There's also security
That's right.
reasons, who can get the gas and
Hey,
all that kind of stuff.
Can we move on,
Yeah.
please?
Thank you.
All right, the last item under business was the school department budget, and, well, we haven't heard anything yet since we heard from the last time. I just kept it on the agenda in case something came up.
I was hoping Jeff was gonna give us an update.
Pardon?
I was hoping you were gonna give an update tonight. It was pretty
Um,
dismal last week.
Do we have any update, Mr. Sweat, that you wish to give us, or?
After meeting with the finance committee, the school board met literally that evening. We did not discuss the school department budget. We did discuss the transportation budget. We did not vote on the transportation budget because the scenario that was presented to us by the superintendent and the transportation manager was not sufficiently well understood as to how it could actually work. It was creative, it appeared to solve some problems, but at least speaking for myself, I won't speak for Mike, there were too many questions about how it could be achieved, given the assumptions that were being made. So that is going to continue to be explored. The advantage, of course, of doing so, I shouldn't say of course, the advantage would be that we'd be able to live within the budget that the town administrator has prepared and still have the revolver to purchase whatever number of used or new vehicles that allowed. It's not a total solution to the problem, but it's a significant solution to the problem, if it works. But just to give you some perspective on why we are examining it thoroughly, it takes off the road 5 vehicles, 5 large buses, does not appear to increase the number of hours that a bus driver would work, but expects them to do 3 runs instead of 2. And that just seemed to us to be quite miraculous. And we didn't quite understand how that was going to occur. So we wanted it to be explored more deeply. I guess that's enough of an update, except to say that the school committee will be having a special meeting on the 27th. Part of that process will be the search, the continuation of the search, but another part of it will be something that, I guess, in fairness to say, I initiated because I think the expectation of continued loss of resources means that I think we're going to have to think really seriously about how we continue to provide education in this town. And I don't say that with any pleasure.
Depressing
Any
now.
questions? Thank you, sir.
That's next Wednesday night?
Excuse me?
Next Wednesday night, you're gonna,
The 27th.
We need 27.
Yes, or to be more succinct, I hope what comes out of that meeting is a educational vision that we will then ask the new superintendent to execute, as compared to expecting the new superintendent to develop that vision on the fly.
Motion to adjourn.
I have no, well, are there any liaison reports?
I'll have one next week, I'm meeting this week.
Anyone else have any liaison reports?
This is pathetic.
We don't have the minutes for February sixth executive session. I apologize.
I thought we didn't actually have an executive session. Wasn't that the,
You got it for the labor and Cameron? You got it for the foreign, or what?
No, we did have an executive session.
okay, well
At the
then,
end of the meeting, we had an executive session. Right, but there still has to be some minutes for that.
well, then I need to rethink this because I believe the comment was made at the beginning. Okay, never mind, we'll talk about this
We
later.
didn't have the start, we didn't have the one with the selectmen, but we did have one at the end, remember? We can work on it.
All right.
Next meeting day? No.
Are we gonna discuss this March 2nd deal, or we
Well, as I said, the next
Yeah.
meeting day.
That's
Does
what-
anybody see a reason for a meeting next week? Next Wednesday night?
Well, I'll probably be pretty happy by Tuesday, so maybe we ought to meet Wednesday to bring me down to some sort of level of depression for the second, for
That's
the meeting
enough
on
for
the
that
second.
comment. No, does anybody
I
see,
shall not be in it.
anyone see any need for a meeting
Not
next
if we're
week?
gonna do it.
I don't think that we're gonna do one, I don't think we
I'm
need,
gonna meet on Saturday.
pardon?
If your intention is to meet on Saturday as well.
Well,
then
it's
you'll
not
be-
my intention is whatever the committee wants to do.
Let's do it.
Entertain, you know, I almost think it, you know, I personally think we should do it.
I have a concern about that, just briefly. When we meet with the people that have the articles and they come in and talk to us, it's a fairly streamlined process for the most part. And I don't know how it's going to be, if we're gonna do an all-day Saturday session with the selectmen, who's basically going to run the meeting and how is it going to be run? Because I don't wanna turn into a free-for-all where we have a pretty good idea how to talk about articles and how we wanna address it and whatnot. It's a little more of something we've done fairly well. And now, they haven't really done that, or at least this board, as far as I'm concerned, haven't really done that. And so my only concern is who's gonna run the meeting and how's it gonna be run, because it's, you know, I don't wanna be there till 7 o'clock at night because everybody wants to, you know.
I think that can be worked out, but as far as, my concern is, I mean, it's the 20th, it's only a week. How many people are they arranging, and is it enough time to get them all notified?
Well, maybe the selectman Slavin can enlighten us as far as Mr. Holmes indicated that it was not a problem for his board. I don't know.
They're looking at two meetings. The first meeting would be an hour possibly before a selectmen's meeting or whatever you wanna do, and that had to do with discussion that we've been trying to put together between the board of selectmen and the FinCom. That hasn't happened yet. The second meeting was, we had discussions about a month ago, and we've had other discussions about the idea that we had issues over the last year where certain people came before the FinCom, never made it to the board of selectmen. Certain people came before the board of selectmen, never made it to the FinCom, and it caused problems. So the idea was that we would both meet together to interview everybody at one time, so it all heard the same story, as well as seeing everything. And that's what the second meeting is scheduled for around, that second Saturday. The board also said we could possibly meet on a Thursday or Friday, or whatever, basically whatever works for you. My impression of having the board vote on it would be that the FinCom would run the meeting, because the FinCom is responsible for us. Or select will be there if they have any questions, they'll ask questions, like the FinCom would ask on any end, when they come up, they don't understand. The idea is if you really person who wants to pay a half hour per article, it should be pretty simple. It could be less than that, whatever. It's just to make sure that everybody understands what's in front of them when they go to vote at a later meeting, either for or against it, what they're talking about.
And one part of the meeting is also set aside for the budget issues as well.
That would be a separate meeting that they talk about for an hour. We could put it in where we have executive session, we can do it then. We'll work out something, but this is something that still needs to be done, that hasn't been done. The board is not trying to avoid not coming and sitting with a FinCom to discuss budget. And the budget means not just the simple budget issue, but it really involves a lot more. It involves, say, if we have $10 in income and $15 in expense. When this is all said and done, the Board of Selectmen are gonna have to make some policies and guidance for the town administrator to say what services you wanna see and what services you're allowed to go away.
Okay.
And this is all part of the whole thing that has to be done.
So, what's everyone's feelings about getting back to him on March 2nd?
I'm fine with that.
Also, we're not gonna vote at that meeting, so
No.
we will go back
This is
and have a
informational.
vote later on ourselves, and we'll see you do the same thing.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
informational.
The first question is, the citizen petition articles aren't even due until the 8th.
No, we'll have.
So
to-
we're talking strictly the
This
department
is
heads
the department heads first.
only.
Department
So
heads will-
now is he proposing the same thing for when we have the citizens participation?
And articles that come, that come different ways that we may see a little later on.
So there would be a
You have
second
two sets
session.
of articles, you have Derek's special town meeting articles. Okay, then you have the department head articles. In case there might be something later that comes from, private firm or something like this, the petition on the board, be a way to make the same thing there again. The idea is to have one meeting.
And I understand the idea, the question is, it's not gonna cover all the articles.
No, it's strictly department heads right now.
There's a whole, strictly department heads, and
Town administrator
others have to
articles,
be done differently.
articles sponsored basically through the board of selectmen, for the department heads and department heads.
And we're gonna cover the budget in an hour?
We're not doing the budget
Not the
article.
budget, I think you had certain questions you had to ask, and you wanted to discuss the budget with the board of selectmen.
My impression
That's a
was,
separate meeting.
All right.
That's the executive session we never had.
all right,
We will have it.
that was my impression was that.
What was your input?
But my impression was we were gonna discuss what warrant articles were here now,
Right.
and a separate meeting that particular day on the budget, on the budget, yes.
So the budget in its entirety.
That was my understanding.
Well, I don't.
And how long would that, how long is he scheduling for that? The last I heard the other night was an hour. 1 hour for the budget.
He didn't say how long.
That was the meeting that we had wanted to have with the selectmen.
No, that's not
About-
what he said the other night. He said the budget
Well-
was an hour. All right. We need to find out what exactly he's talking about.
You want
Donna, I'm hearing the same thing. Donna's saying the same thing I heard at the meeting last night, was we wanted an hour to talk about the budget.
there were questions you wanted to ask, and we had to have a town council here.
Yes.
You asked certain things, there's certain things we can answer.
Okay,
certain
so
things
that's
we
what it
can't.
is.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay,
Okay,
good. So you need to get back to him.
get back to him for what?
Make sure that's what it is.
Well, how does the board feel about meeting on Saturday?
I would be available, but I don't wanna come on Wednesday and then do Saturday too.
No, I agree.
So do I.
I just have concern with fairness for dragging department heads and town administrator in on a Saturday.
I don't have a problem.
The comment from the board was, fortunately for the department heads and the town administrator, they're salaried employees. There's no overtime, and this is part of the job, and they're expected to accommodate these things.
It's mostly probably just gonna be these, the we buy.
There's not a lot of them anyway.
It's preferable that we can
Yeah,
obviously
it
do
is.
it like
Yeah,
on a
that's what I
daytime
thought.
or a weekday.
Would do last week.
We have volunteer boards, it's not few.
We have people who work on this committee too. I mean, we can't do it during the
Both-
daytime.
Both boards, you have people
Yeah.
working.
And it's only one meeting instead of the two. that
Exactly.
normally get tortured through. And they don't have to sit and listen to, 2 hours of the selectmen's meeting before it gets to that.
Yes, answer the same question once as opposed to twice.
The other comment is the moderator mentioned that if you do have citizen petition articles filed and ready to go, we can possibly have them available to save some time.
I would hope that the moderator would be included in this meeting too, maybe.
All right, is this a tentative?
So we're not meeting next week? We're not meeting next week?
Not meeting.
Not
Yeah.
we're gonna do
Not on
Saturday.
Wednesday.
Wait from
No.
Saturday.
Skipping Wednesday.
So go for the Saturday, so 3-2, okay, 3-2.
The time's tentative at this point.
Whatever time, what's a good time for you folks?
Not 8 AM.
Okay, 9 o'clock?
I was thinking 7.
I was too, I could do that.
We're old.
Great, you guys start at 7, Bonnie and I will see you there at 9.
Start early if you want.
3-2. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
Hold on, don't you have meeting minutes to approve, Mr. Chairman?
No, we're gonna have to
No,
discuss
so we'll
that.
Oh, okay.
have to discuss
All right, okay. So 3-2, everybody's,
All in
I'll
favor?
get
All in
back.
favor?
Oh, wait, hang on, hold it, wait.
Wait.
Because I need to look something up before I let you do that, hold on.
Too late, they already have the motion.
Okay, never mind.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I just wanted to make sure it was the same day.